welcome in to another episode. This is try number 2, and it seems more positive than the last one was. So we're diving in, and we're recording this on September 6th. I think it's going to come out next week or the week. I don't remember exactly what the timeline is, but first week of school. Like full kind of week of school. There was weeks, last week.
We had like a 3-day week last week. I don't really know if that counted.
Yeah, but we're kind of back into it. And I've been having a conversation a lot with a lot of my clients, and it's a season of shifting, right? It's a season of recalibration, and everything feels kind of new, and we're on the heels of summer, and a lot of parents, I feel like, this is the case, and we're in a situation where the life that we've been living all summer no longer exists, and we have to kind of figure out what life looks like in this new season. And I've been having this conversation because there's been a lot of kind of tectonic shifts in a lot of my clients' lives, even more than just back to school. It's like, a foster kid is coming into one of their houses indefinitely, moving, new job, like big life altering shifts. And so what I want to talk about today is what to do in these seasons of change and how they actually can be a really opportune time for your fitness and your health and your habits and all of these things, and can be framed in that way.
I love it.
So we'll start with a story, as we tend to do. And I think I've shared this before, but this was in 2021, fall of 2021. In September, Megan started a new job, teaching at a new school. So this was September of 2021. Started a new job teaching in a new school. The latter half of that month, we bought a new car that we had to, a minivan. October of that year, we closed on our house. November of that year, the twins were born.
I mean, I really I want to just write this down so I can keep referring to how much you did in a teeny tiny time period.
In 2 months, right? New job, new car, new house, and then 2 babies with a 19-month-old as well. Other things happened, obviously, during that time as well, but those are any one of those things would be a lot, right? There are 5 things that are considered the most stress-inducing things that can happen in life, right? Which is moving, having a kid, marriage or divorce, new job, and or death of a loved one. Those are the 5 most stressful things that can kind of happen in your life. And we had
3 out of 5.
3 of them in 2 months.
3 with an asterisk because you didn't just have the one kid.
Yeah, 3 plus 3.5. we had. We could give ourselves credit for 4 because we had an extra kid. Yeah. But it was a lot that happened, and we had this happen. Megan had this happen when we got married. So in 2016, the summer of 2016, so we got married, and then she had to move into my place, but we had to kind of move because it was like a whole, I moved. It was a whole new house basically. It had been a bunch of dudes living there for 4 years, and so we had to make this like habitable for.
You had to clean
it was a nice apartment, like we took good care of it. It wasn't
still
like
boys, though.
We were boys. Yeah, we were boys. But it was a bunch of dudes, so we had to make this habitable for a thing, for a woman to come and live in. And then we both she started a new job that fall. So for her, marriage, move, new job, that was when she went to Auburn. and then 5 years later, she went to cooperative middle school, which is where she's at now, and kind of her dream job.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. But any one of those things can be a lot in and of itself.
Yep.
Right? Where any one of those things, and I tell this to clients who are having new kids, in particular, because I work with a lot of parents, and so they're like, hey, we're having a kid. And we did the whole series on pregnancy because all of my clients were getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
Not, yeah.
not all of them,
Not
but a
all.
lot of them were. And then when they start having their babies, it's like, listen, this is as challenging as this is, because it's a blessing 100%, but we're going to talk about the challenges of these things. And this is going to feel a little adjacent to, or part two to, the conversation we had about parenting 2-3 episodes ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one with the road not traveled.
Okay.
If you haven't listened to that episode, that's worth listening to. But this is going to be kind of adjacent to that, which is there's 100% blessings, but there's also challenges that come with any of these things. Like Megan got her dream job in 2021, but that doesn't mean it's not challenging to start at a brand new school. And she had been teaching 8th grade for her whole career, and now she's going to teach 6th grade. And, all of the logistics that come with that, new team members.
Mm-hmm. And COVID, she started
It was
right at
it
the
was still
beginning of
COVID. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was still COVID. All of that stuff. And I had a brain fart. Give me a second. What was I saying? There's blessings with all of those things,
Yes.
but there's also challenges. I'm back. There's blessings with all those things, but there's also challenges. But the important thing for us to kind of distinguish is, though it is a challenge, it's also like, it's a blessing in and of itself. It's a challenge to do some of the things that we want to do, but there's also a blessing in the figuring out my life in this scenario, because of, if I have a new kid, life is getting rearranged,
Mm-hmm.
whether I like it or not.
You have no choice in the matter.
You have no choice. Like, your life has to get rearranged.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an opportunity for you to recalibrate the things that matter in your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity for you to reprioritize the things that matter in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and to make room for the things that do and kick out the things that don't. It's an opportunity for you to kind of send by the wayside things that you've been doing that you just do out of habit, or because
Mm-hmm.
it's just what you've grown accustomed to,
Mm-hmm.
and ask the question, is this actually what I want to be doing?
Yeah.
And what am I not doing that I would love to be doing? Because it's getting all on the table anyway. Like, your entire life has to go onto the table. And then there's I don't know if I want to call it a cliche, but there's a fairly common analogy or kind of illustration, object lesson for this sort of circumstance when you're recalibrating your life. Okay, which is, I have a jar, and I'm going to fill the jar with rocks,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you fill the jar with rocks, as many rocks as you can put in there. And then you put a bunch of pebbles in there, and more pebbles can fit in, even though there's
no more room.
no more room for rocks.
Right.
But then you put the pebbles in, and there is more room for stuff. Is it full? Yes, it's full. Then you pour sand in, and it fills.
Mm-hmm.
Is it full? Yes, it looks full, because you can't put any more sand in. Then you
Right.
pour water in, and you can still constantly get more things. But the problem is if you put the water in first, then you can't put any sand in, you can't put any pebbles in, you can't put in any rocks in. It's
Mm-hmm.
full there, and there's no room. And so it's a conversation about big things versus the small things. If you prioritize the small things first, then there's no room for the big things.
Right.
And so you want to prioritize the big things first. What are the big things in your life that you're going to want to put back on the table? And so those are, work, family time, all of these things. And we're going to talk about all of those on this episode as we kind of dig into it. But it's a welcome opportunity for us to put it all on the table, look at it, and be like, what are the big things? What are the small things?
Yeah.
What am I not going to have room for anymore?
I love that analogy. I've always loved it.
Me too.
It's such a good one because you can use it for so many different decisions that you have to make or parts of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Just what are your rocks? What are your pebbles? What's your sand?
Yeah. What matters? It's a way of prioritizing what matters to you. And so I have said this because people have said, like, how did all of that happen, right? In 2021, like, how did you guys not, like, die, with all of that? And so this is to use because before we hit recording, me was saying that she was crawling around in the basement of a really old house, right? And so
not just for fun, guys. I'm a realtor, not just for fun. Though I have done that, but that involved metal detectors in someone's house. I did know. She let me crawl around and look for stuff because I'm a super nerd. But yeah, no, this was professionally crawling around in a basement. You made it sound like I like break into people's houses.
I'm like crying right now. She's like, I wanted to be in
it looked like an interesting basement. I don't know.
I don't know if anybody was thinking that, but all right. So I guess context.
I'm pretty sure everyone was. Context is important.
Right.
Like, why are you crawling around?
Amy's a realtor.
Yep.
She's crawling around the basement.
Key information.
So when you're in a house like that, right? A lot of renovations are coming down the pipe, right? Yeah. Like this is a Fixer Upper type place, right? And if you ever watched Fixer Upper, right? Chip and Joanna, right? Mm-hmm. What are they? What's the best day on Fixer Upper? It's demo.
The reveal day. No, the reveal day for me.
The reveal day, but like what their favorite day is demo day.
Chip's
right?
favorite day is demo
Chip's
day.
favorite day is demo day, right? Because you just like break it all apart.
Yeah.
And there's something to the idea of like, all right, I'm doing demolition with the idea of like the walls are coming down. I might as well do the floors too.
Might as well. Mm-hmm.
Because
God, you and your analogies, they're so good.
At some point, the floors are going to need to get done. I don't love the floors. Mm-hmm. So I might as well do them while I'm doing everything. And it's going to be harder and it's going to be more work. But long run, it's going to be less work. And when I'm done, I'm going to be done. And it's going to be what I want it to be. And I won't have to do it again.
Yep, you'll be more satisfied if you do it now.
So it can feel a little bit like when it rains, it pours, right? That's one perspective on it. Like, oh my gosh, it's just another thing and another thing and another thing. But it's like the room's coming down anyway. Like, let's just tear it all down. Like, our life was going to be recalibrated by any one of the three major things of my wife starting a new job, buying the house, or having the twins. Right? Buying the car wasn't like, I mean, it was a big thing, but it wasn't like that's not a life altering thing. Right? But any one of those three things that we talked about, any one of the five things is going to recalibrate your life. Your life is going to go back on the table.
Yeah. I almost feel like buying a minivan should be like a sixth thing, not because it's a minivan and like jokes about minivans, but because that's such a visual signal that you're in a different phase of life. If you have to buy a minivan, you are no longer this fun single person doing fun things. You don't buy a minivan to like bring your friends out. You have a different purpose and you're thinking about different purposes.
For sure. Well, that's a symptom, not a cause. Right. That's a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator.
Yeah.
Like that's the result of the fact that we were having the twins.
Yeah.
Right. That was the visual representation of like everything's about to shift. Like with one kid or even two kids, you can go around with a Camry with two kids.
Yeah.
I cannot.
Nope. I have never bought a minivan and never need to. I don't need to.
I will have a minivan for the next 16 years. At a minimum. Yeah. I will have we will always have a minivan. It makes too much sense to not have a minivan. They're built for what we have.
And they're so comfortable and they ride so well.
It's like a spaceship.
Yeah.
it's just designed for it. And we test drove. If anybody wants to come at me with the mom SUVs, right? The big old SUVs, they don't
They're not
they
as
don't do
smooth.
what we do. They're not built for what we're doing. That's built for two kids.
Yeah, two kids and your sports mom.
Yeah, like the big, whatever if
Like
you really
Suburbans and
rich, the
things.
Escalade, Suburban, right?
Yeah.
That's built for two kids. Or maybe when your kids are older, like teenagers or something like that, maybe. But no, we're not playing that game. We're minivan.
Yeah,
And
now we
and I
have
don't
three car seats to be able to access. Like, you
three
need to
car
be able
seats.
to get in there.
Yeah, 3 car seats. And we're going to have 3 car seats for the next 3 years. I don't know when kids stop doing booster seats, but at least
Just stopped, and she's 10,
yeah.
but she liked it because she like put her high enough where she could have a better view. So
Well, she's enormous. She probably could have stopped a couple of years ago. She's like a 6th grader. She's huge.
She's very tall.
Every time I see her, she's taller than she was before.
I don't want to measure her again. Oh my god, no, I'm nervous.
It's so big. And my kids are peanuts, so they're gonna be in car seats for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my 4-year-old's like 35 pounds. He's tiny.
I think Em was 35 pounds when she was 2.
Yeah,
because she's always been super tall. Like, she's been a very long child.
I registered this the other day, so I was with Levi at a playground, and there was another boy there who was 2, not yet 3,
mm-hmm.
who was Levi's size.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't look big. Like, it wasn't like, oh, that's a massive, 2.5-year-old. It was just like, and then I registered. I'm like, Levi makes Parker look tiny. Parker is itty bitty.
Mm-hmm.
He's like in the first percentile on a lot of stuff.
Is he really?
He's so small.
Oh, wow.
He is such a small kid.
Yeah, so you really are going to have car seats for a while.
For a long time. Long time. We might buy the next minivan and still have car seats. I don't know if that's true.
Oh my god.
We have to buy... Unrelated, we have to buy the minivan out like next week, which is so fun. You gotta love it. So I love buying cars. Not really at all.
I just paid mine off, and then I got 3 dings on it within a week. I'm like,
yeah,
that's how that happens.
Yeah. They were like, "Do you want to lease another one?" I was like, "We beat the hell out of this minivan. Like, you don't want it back.
You
like,
don't want it.
You don't want it back. Like, we don't. I don't normally lease stuff, but we had to because we were buying the house at the same time. So that was a whole other. We couldn't take out a loan on the thing, and that was at the time in 2021 where cars were. It was more expensive to buy it was like $1,000 less to buy a 3-year-old minivan with 30,000 miles on it than it would have been to buy a brand new one. I was like, all right, well, let's get the new one. And then we were buying the house, but we needed to have the van in case the kids came early. And so it was like, okay, we got to just do this now, I guess. And so we had to lease it.
To all you folks out there who are thinking about buying a house, do not buy a car right before you buy a house. That'll way adjust everything, and your lender will not be pleased.
No. So I had to call my lender beforehand. I was like, are we going to be all right if I we had to put down, it was such a hard thing because we had to put down the most that we could in order to get our lease payment down, but we had to stay liquid so that we could do our down payment on our house. It was a very Tetris financial situation. But we made it work. We made it happen.
Tetris.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a verb, but I just use it as a verb.
Anything can become a verb if you say it's a verb.
Fair enough. My English teacher wife would probably disagree, but
I can make anything out of a verb. I was a verb for a long time. You Steinberged it.
Oh, okay. I didn't have the context on that. I was very confused.
I just do things very, very differently and very well, and everything I do.
That's what doing a Steinberg is.
At my old job, like it became at first it was like term of endearment, and then after a while they're like, God damn it, Steinberged it. We can't do that. And I'm like, I didn't really do it. I had John make it look pretty, but like I will so take credit for it.
Well, he's a Steinberg
technically
too.
It was Steinberg. It just wasn't me.
Oh man, we went off on a tangent there.
What are you talking about?
that one was a long way gone.
Blessings. Blessings.
No, we were talking about life. Okay, so I got it. I got it. We're back. So the idea is any one of these things that we had happening was going to radically shift our life.
Yeah.
And so people are like, how did it all, happen? How did you not drown in it? It was a mental reframe of like, the house is coming down, the walls are coming down. We might as well
Yep.
do the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our entire life was going to be in flux. So
Mm-hmm.
if we steer into it and we don't hold on to anything super tight, we're just like, all right, this is a cool opportunity to ask the question, if I drew this up exactly how I wanted it, what would it look like?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that it's not going to look that way, right? Like, you have to have the full expect. And this is going back to the house, right? Like, if I look at this house and I could have it however I want to, what would I have? Right? And then you can look at it and be like, well, I can't take that wall out because it's load bearing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, that's not going to work. Like, there's a limitation on that. But at least I have an idea of what I'm trying to do, because it's a lot easier to have a structure, have a plan, and then adapt to the plan as obstacles come up, versus, all right, it's demo day and I'm just going to start banging on walls and see what comes down. Right? Like, you can't do that.
No.
You have to have at least an idea of what you're going to do. And then again, going back to Fixer Upper, like, they always come across a problem, right?
Always.
It was the big dramatic thing where we got to call them, and it's going to cost more money, and they played it up for the TV, but it always happens.
Was that your Southern accent? Spot on.
I lived in Atlanta for a long time. I didn't.
Kidding. Go back to
No, I know it was bad.
That's great.
No, but we got to call them. Like, and it happened, and they played it up for the TV, but it happens in every renovation ever,
Totally.
right? That, like, it doesn't happen on, like, there's an issue that comes up and
Yep.
and whatever. And I was talking to one of my clients is a contractor, and he does this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if you went into the day being like, I wonder what we'll do today, that would not be an efficient way to do it. Like, you're like, all right, today the electrician's going to come, and then tomorrow we're going to, whatever, do buff the floors. I don't know. I'm just thinking about stuff. Right. And then the electrician can't come on that day. If you don't have a plan, then it's a day lost. Right? We have to be able to have a structure, at least an idea, and it's a lot easier for us to adapt a plan to the circumstances versus just be like, I'm going to just step into it and figure out what I have. And
real quick way to get overwhelmed.
Well, that's what a lot of people do in the fall. Like, I'm going to wait until the fall and see how the schedule shakes out, and then I'll figure out where my workouts are going to fit in. I'm gonna see how work goes, and I'm just gonna figure it out for a little bit, and then I will XYZ. No, you won't, because now you're trying to put big rocks in after the sand has filled it up. You've let the schedule set the way that it's gonna set. You have to be proactive to it. You have to be active in being like, all right, if I could draw this up exactly how I wanted it to be, what would it look like? And how do you do that? Well, you have to start with, what are the things that are going to be most important to me? What are my big rocks? What are the things that are non-negotiating? Like, I have to intentionally do these things or they will get missed, right? And things that are going to be that, right? You have to work or have some way of making money. Somebody in your family does, right? There's things that need to get done around the house, but maybe not all of that needs to be you, right? Like, I'm just listing the things, right? Those are like kind of things. But more importantly, right? I need time with Megan. I need time with the kids, each of them. And then we need time together as a family. Megan needs time with the kids, each of them. We need time as a family. Megan needs time by herself. I need time by myself. She needs time with her girlfriends. I need time with my guy friends. We need time together doing stuff with other people, right? These are all things that we need. She needs time to take care of her physical and mental health. I need time to take care of my physical and mental health. And some of these can overlap, right? Like, it's not all of these are individual, but like, we need to recognize that all of those things need to be taken care of, and we need to carve out space for them. And where we have we will continue to struggle. And it's an ongoing battle. You're not going to do this perfectly because there's, quite frankly, not enough time to do all these things well. There just isn't. But the problem comes when we get out of balance on some of these things. Mm-hmm. Where, and Megan said it last night. She's like, since we got back from our vacation, which was, I don't know, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago. Oh, she hasn't been able to go have time like by herself or with a girlfriend. It just hasn't worked out timing wise. She's had a lot of work to do, and it hasn't worked out timing wise with her girlfriends. And she's like, I miss it. Mm-hmm. I need it. We haven't had time, the two of us, without kids since vacation. We had time, like we went on a double date, but we hadn't had time, just the two of us. And she was like, I miss you. And I said, I miss you. Like we haven't had that intentional time together. And what ends up happening is that when these things get out of balance, we start to have, there's more, we get depleted. She's like, I'm burnt. I don't have it in me. So I'm not showing up in the way that I want to in the places that I currently am for work, for the family, for you, because I haven't filled this area of my life. Mm-hmm. This thing isn't getting fed. And that happens the other way too. So like we're going into the busiest season of our year right now. Like this fall is, and I will kind of tell a little bit of my story with this, but like fall is nuts in our house and has been for several years since Megan has become a photographer, but particularly the last couple of years. Because she's a photographer, and in New England, the fall is the time to get married. Mm-hmm. So she's shooting, I think, 5 weddings between now and the end of October, and we're a guest at another one, and she's got several other photo shoots in between that. So that means that 5 Saturdays, she's gone all day, and I'm with the kids. Mm-hmm. And then she also has to edit those, which take like 15 to 20 hours a piece.
Right.
And she's got to find time to edit those over and above her teaching schedule. Mm-hmm. So that means that there's multiple evenings and afternoons where she has to be gone to go somewhere to do editing. And again, it's 1-on-3 for me with the kids. And now this is a season where it's going to be, hey, her work meter is going to be higher. And my time with, all 3 kids is going to be higher, not necessarily individually, but with all 3 kids is going to be higher. So I'm going to need to get filled more time for me, like individually, like mental health breaks so that I, have it in me to deal with the kids. But the problem with that is if all of her time is spent working and then covering for me when I'm doing mental health time, where's her mental health time?
Right. This is going to be a very tricky balancing act.
It is. And then what ends up happening is we get to the end of October. If we're not proactive about this, we get to the end of October and there's resentment and there's exhaustion. And it takes us sometimes a month and a half to kind of 2 months, like December, to kind of get back to neutral even. We're like running in a deficit. And that's a hard way to live.
Yeah.
For an extended period of time. And things have to kind of go by the wayside a little bit there. And so when we're having these conversations, like a really simple example is, so she would typically during the school year, she would go to the gym in the evenings. Like this is what she did most of last school year. She would go 2 or 3 evenings a week to the gym and take a class. But the challenge with that is that's like, she's gone from like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. with the drive, the class, and then the drive back. And that's, parents with young kids know that's the worst time for her to be out of the house.
We call that the witching hour.
Yes, it's terrible. Yep. And so we don't get to do family dinners. So that's like family time that we're missing out on. You know what I mean? And I was like, hun, it's not to say that you're not going to work out, but it might not look that way, right? So if she's drawing it up exactly how she would want it with no constraints, she would be like, all right, I would teach. And then I would, have a couple of afternoons where I would work. And then a couple of different evenings, I would go to the gym. And you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I look at that, and then I can say, all right, I get that that's what you would like, but there's a constraint here. And
Mhm.
so we need to figure out a different way to accomplish the goal, but have it look different. So we're
Mhm.
like, all right, could you do a workout here in the basement behind me? She's like, I don't really love doing that. Okay, well, can we, do we find you a gym that's closer for these couple of months? Do you just do running? How can we do this a little differently? Or do you just work out in the basement, even though it's not your favorite
It's
thing
not
for the
your
short
ideal.
term?
Yeah.
Because we can't have it any, like, this isn't Burger King. You can't have it your way. Like, we can't have it all the way that we want to. So we have to pick what are the big rocks. And
Mhm.
so everything gets put on the table now with these tectonic shifts in life. And so we put on the table, what are the important things? And then we say, all right, how would that ideally play out? And then we figure out those constraints on it. And we say, okay, that needs to happen, but it might not be able to happen that way.
Mhm.
And then we have other conversations about, like, okay, I would really, really like this to work, you know, but it might not. It might not. And there's a cost to everything. It's like a budget, right? Like, you have a time budget. If I make $5,000 in a month, right? There's the things that have to happen, right? I have to pay rent and lights and food, and you know what I mean? And then that's this amount of money. And now I have this amount left over. Well, I can't, if I have $1,000 left over, I can't spend $500 on a new Louis Vuitton bag. Not that I have any desire to do this. I don't even know how much that would cost. But $500 on the new Louis Vuitton bag, and then be upset that I can't go on a trip to, Charleston with friends. Like,
Mhm.
I can't, I have to pick. And it doesn't mean that one is, it's a priorities thing. And it might be like, hey, instead of going to Charleston, can we do something closer? Because I want that you know what I mean? Like, what
Mhm.
does it look like? Can we be creative with the problems? But now we're doing problem solving versus overwhelm.
Mhm.
But we have to identify what the problem is. And the only way to identify what the problem is to have an idea of what we're trying to do. And then we get to a point. So this is when I used to teach. This is what I used to do with students. Because my least favorite thing as a math teacher was kids would look at the problem and they're like, I don't know how to do this.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, great. I wasn't expecting you to know exactly how to do this
Haven't
in
taught
this
it yet.
moment. I haven't taught it, or even I have taught it yet, but, like, you haven't done this problem before. If you had done it before, there wouldn't be a lot of value in me having you do it.
Mhm.
But you have the skills necessary to figure this out. I'm telling you that you have the skills necessary to figure this out. So what I'm asking you to do is just throw math at it. That was the phrase that I used. I was like,
Mhm.
just do math that's math legal, right? There are math laws. Don't break the math laws, but just start doing stuff. Like, all right, I have an equation. I'll do a really, really simple one, right? I have, like, whatever. X squared plus 2x plus 7 equals 3. Okay, that's your equation.
Mhm.
You don't know how to solve that. Let's just say that we haven't done anything with quadratics. So you don't know how to solve that. You know that you can add and subtract the same number from both sides of an equation and it doesn't change the equation, right?
Mhm.
So just try to subtract 7 from both sides and see what happens.
Mhm.
All right. Does that look like something you know how to deal with? No? Okay. What about subtracting 3 from both sides? Does that look like something you know how to deal with? Oh, it does now. Now we have a quadratic equation equal to 0 and you know how to handle it.
Mhm.
It's a situation where you might not know exactly how to do it, but you're not going to know how to do it until you start doing some stuff. And you have at least a rough idea of what you're like. You have to start trying things
Mhm.
that are like, this could work. It might not lead anywhere,
Mhm.
but let me try it. There's no consequences to failing at it necessarily, but let me like give it a whirl. So to use the example of Megan working out, it's like, let's try working out in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
If you hate it, we can find something else. But it's at least worth trying to figure out if it's a good fit. You might find that if you do enough things that are like, hey, that's math legal, oh, look, something I know how to deal with popped out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what problem solving looks like. It's like, I'm going to just start doing stuff. And then once I'm in there, I might come to a situation where you're like, oh, I found a problem that I know how to solve.
Yep.
Because I've been here before. But if you look at a new problem and it feels like a new circumstance and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. But you apply your previous experiences to it. The way to do that is to make the problem that you currently have look like a problem that you've already solved.
Mm-hmm. Is this something you walk your clients through? Because I feel like obviously you make analogies for everything. This is likely an analogy for training, where we try things and they don't necessarily work, but then we don't know what else to do. Like it seems like we tried something, it didn't work, and then instead of moving to the next potential solution, a lot of us just get really discouraged. It's like we tried it and it didn't work, and I'm the problem. Like, how do you work through that with your clients?
Well, so I'll go back to the teaching thing for a second, because that'll lead into it. So if I have the kid who's like, I don't know how to do it, and I say, well, just try some stuff, and then they tried subtracting the 7 from both sides.
Yep.
And they're like, I still don't know how to do it.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. Is that the only thing you could have done? Is there any other things that you could try looking at it? Anything else? It doesn't have to be a good idea, right? It might not feel like a good idea, but like there is an answer, right? I'm telling you that there's an answer. So why don't you look at it and say, hey, can I try something else? And if you don't know, right? If the student didn't see, oh, I could subtract 3 from both sides, I can ask a question. Hey, so you subtracted 7 from both sides. Why did you do that? Well, I know that I could subtract 7. I could subtract the same thing for both sides, and it is still math. Okay. Is there anything else that you could subtract from both sides and it would be similar? Oh, I mean, I guess I could do the 3. All right, let's just try that. Let's see what happens. What do you get? Oh, I get 0 on that side. Do you know anything that looks like what if I have a quadratic equation equal to 0? Do you know anything that might help you with that? Literally, I've had this conversation more times than I can count. Right? This is exactly what it sounded like if you were in my classroom. All right. What's something you know how to do now? Oh, well, I think I can use. Isn't that there's some quadratic formula? I was like, yeah, pull out your notes to see if we can find it. There it is. Let's give that a shot and see. Give it a whirl, and I'll come back in a second and find you. Oh, I did it. Oh, look at that. So, client, right, is like, okay, I have a client who's in this exact circumstance right now. Life is shifting, right? Old dog that's kind of on the way out, new puppy, kids back to school, a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts. And historically has woken up early to work out at, 5 a.m. or something like that. And she's done that for a while, and that's been successful. That's not working right now because she has to get up in the middle of the night with the puppy, and she's up later with the kids and whatever. It's like I'm having a hard time getting myself up to do the workout right now. It's like, okay. Are there other times in your day that you could potentially do this? Not saying that it's ideal, but I'm just like, list some times that are not, and she's like, okay, I could do this time. I could do this time. I was like, okay. She's like, I could do it in the evenings. She's like, I don't think I'll like it in the evenings. So I was like, all right, well, let's try it. And she did it. And she was like, yeah, I mean, it worked. I didn't love it.
It's like
that wasn't ideal, but I could do it. And with the fact that I have to stay up later right now, it kind of like it has that benefit. So I can do that. It's a new challenge. And I can wake up at 5. I don't have it in me to do a workout at that time. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, well, what do you do after you drop all the kids off at school?" Well, then I come home and I do some stuff around the house, and I clean up and I do all this kind of stuff. I'm like, "Okay, what would it look like for you to do some of that stuff around the house at 5 o'clock in the morning because you're like, you don't have a problem waking up. You just don't have it in you to do a workout right now.
Mm-hmm.
What would it like for you to do some of the things around the house in the morning? And then when you come back from dropping off the kids, you do your workout. Okay. Well, and everybody has a different circumstance where this is the case, and it might not work for forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what the schedule looks like for right now.
Yep.
So for instance, for me right now, I have historically on Tuesday and Thursday, I teach a small group class from 6 to 7, and then I would work out from 7 to 8 or 7 to 7:45, 7:50, something like that. And then, I'd either leave on Tuesday or on Thursday I would teach the glute camp class that you come to. And then I would get one other workout in maybe in the week. I had a couple different spots that I could put it. But that was like, those were kind of, but this year, Megan has to be at school at 7:10 in the morning, which would mean that on Tuesday and Thursday, she's got to get herself up and all the kids out the door and dropped off and be at school by 7:10. And it's a tall order
Mm-hmm.
to do that with the timing and with the volatility of kids, right? Because they could wake up at 5:30, they could wake up at 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
They wake up at 6:30. The idea that they're going to wake up at 6:30 and they're going to be in the car at 6:45, that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. And they could just be like not having a good morning. And so then that just like kind of throws it up. And she's like, I'm having a hard time doing this. And so I was like, okay, I'll come home and drop them off and then, go back on Thursday or just be done. So now the plan is, all right, I'm going to drop them off at 7:30 and I'm done. That would be when my workout is. All right, am I going to work out here? I have a hard time when I come home, like not going upstairs and either working or seeing the house in shambles and picking it up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm just going to come in and do a workout. That's a tough thing to sell. So do I find a Planet Fitness around here, even though I could train at the gym that I work at for free? Like, do I go to that? So it's somewhere else. Like, do I go to that place?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm going to try some stuff. It might not be that that's the ideal time. Maybe at 7:30 in the morning, I just start my work day and then I end early and I do my workouts in the afternoon before I go get the kids. I don't know. But there is, yes. So to answer your question, like that's kind of what it looks like with clients, which is like, hey, what would ideally you do? And then how can you, if that doesn't work, what's your next thing?
Mm-hmm.
And it's worth doing the trial to kind of be like, all right, let me just see how it works. And we're using workouts as an example, but nutritionally that is the case as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't want it to be a situation where if it doesn't go exactly the way we want to, then it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the hard part that people get into is that they're like, I have in my head what the schedule is going to be. And then it's not that. And so then it just doesn't happen.
It's like what you were talking about last time or 2 times ago, where like if you go into these, when you're doing your cut, if you go into these phases with this kind of unrealistic set of expectations, that your chance of failure is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into anything that's involving change with expectations that may or may not be seated in reality, then things might not go as well as you'd hoped.
This is where, to that point, this is an important distinction, okay? Which is we have to identify the season for what it is.
Yeah.
All right? This is a season in flux. And so the purpose of this season is to set ourselves up for success beyond. Mm-hmm. And the quicker that we can do that, the better off we'll be. So I'm going into this, like I went into this school year with like I literally drew up I made like a new calendar on my computer, and I put like this is when I want to wake up. I'm going to have a quiet time. I'm going to have breakfast and pack everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to snuggle on the couch with Levi, and then I'm going to do drop-offs at this time. I'm going to travel at this time. Like I literally was like, this is how the day is going to play out. This is how this day is going to play out. This is how this day is going to play out. In my head, if I could do it exactly how I wanted it to, that's what I had. And then I'm spending the first 3 weeks of the school year workshopping that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, all right, that didn't work the way that I wanted to. But if I went into this school year with the expectation that I'm going to nail that,
Mm-hmm.
and that this is going to be the time where I'm going to get 4 workouts in every week and absolutely dominate my work, it's not. It's just not going to be that. Like that's not what this season is for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, check in with any of your teacher friends. They will tell you they are doing their plan books in pencil because of how much is going to shift and change based on trial and error with this particular group of students, this particular year, whatever it is. Life has to be written in pencil sometimes because you have to be able to change it.
And you have to be able to workshop the stuff. But you workshop it coming in with an idea, you know, like,
oh yeah, you wouldn't have shown up to class and be like,
no,
I don't know, we're maybe do some addition today. That's
you gotta, you have a plan and then you pivot as needed. But I've been a part of like songwriting sessions, right? And everybody comes in with an idea. And most of them are terrible. Most of them are so bad. But then somebody has to say something. And so this is actually I'm going to quote Ben Affleck here. I'm going to quote Ben Affleck via Matt Damon. All right? Okay. So Matt Damon did an interview where he was talking about his working relationship with Ben Affleck on writing Good Will Hunting, and then they wrote the movie Air together about Michael Jordan. Those are the two things that they wrote together. But back when they wrote Good Will Hunting, which is what they won an Oscar for, like fantastic film, right? And screenplay is one of the best of all time.
It's just
and Ben said to Matt when he first started, he said, "Don't judge me on how bad my bad ideas are, but on how good my good ideas are. Because I have to feel the freedom to throw out a genuinely terrible idea. Because in the iteration of bad ideas, you come up with a good idea. Because you say something that's like, that's a terrible line, but then there's one word that you're like, oh, we kind of spoof off of that one word. And then 7 iterations later, it's nailed. But it comes from the bad. It comes from trying the bad thing. It comes from being like, that failed. But recognizing that failure is part of the process and it's not a stop. Because what you talked about, the example of like, oh, it didn't work the way that I wanted it to, and so then I stopped.
Yeah.
That's where people stay stuck. Is it didn't work this one way, and so if it didn't go exactly according to plan, then it is a failure. It's like that's why 75 hard. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like why 75 hard fails is it requires perfection. And if you've never heard of it, just Google it. I'm not saying that you can't do it, right? All the things in 75 hard are good things to do. Read and be outside and do workouts and follow a nutrition plan, all of it. But it requires perfection. And if you don't have the freedom to fail and to do something and be like, that didn't work, then the idea that you're going to just be perfect from the jump, you would never expect anything of that from anybody.
Right.
It has to be. There's a point in the life of every skill and anybody who's ever been good at something where they were just awful at it.
Terrible.
Genuinely terrible at it. Like, if you looked at the first workouts I ever wrote for the first clients I ever had, you would actively throw up if you knew at all anything about like I do. I do, and I still look at them sometimes because I'm like, wow, come a long way.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm sure that in 5 years, or even this podcast, right? Think about this podcast. We're, whatever, 66, 67 episodes in.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen back to the first episode of this, it has to suck. It has to suck because you have to be able to just try stuff and be like, that didn't work. But having the expectations that, like, my first episode, I'm going to be Joe Rogan, you know, and be like an elite level podcaster is foolish.
Mm-hmm.
Is foolish. And so having realistic expectations, like, what is the goal? The goal is to figure out the system to set myself up for long-term success.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go back to the house for a second here, right? Like, the 150-year-old house, there's a reason why there's a 150-year-old house that's still standing.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they spent a long time building the friggin' foundation of this house. And so then it was just like, okay, we'll just build up from there. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Not that difficult. But if we half-ass the foundation, then we can't be surprised that the thing comes crumbling down.
Mm-hmm.
We have to put the big rocks in first and be like, all right, these are the things that we're going to do. And we have to figure out, all right, that doesn't work. We got to figure out another thing. But, like, it's coming down. So let's tear it all down. And let's try to build it the way that we would want it to be. But there's a movie, and I can't believe that this happened, but when I was in 8th grade, they did a screening for all the 8th graders of The Patriot with Mel Gibson.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they cut out the hatchet scene, but that was it. They showed everything else. That is an intense movie for a bunch of 8th graders to watch.
It really is.
Now, this was, you know,
good, but
this was, I mean, 8th grade, so this is 2004, right? 2004, I think, 2005.
I just threw up. I'd already graduated college.
Yeah.
I was like full on in my teaching life. Was buying a house, actually. Oh, man. So old.
You're not, though. You're not. We're just gonna blow right past that, just for a moment. So, but there's a quote in The Patriot where Mel Gibson is like reminding his right before the hatchet scene, where he's telling his kids, "Hey, you remember what I told you boys about shooting?" And they say, "Aim small, miss small."
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the idea behind shooting is this, right? Like, and I'm not a shooter, but like if I was aiming at your right big front tooth, you know, like that was my aiming point. I'm going to shoot you right in the tooth.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed by, 20% of the size of my target, which was the tooth. I hit you in the cheek.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm aiming at your body and I miss by 20%, I miss you by 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The smaller the target, the more likely at least our miss is going to be closer to what we were shooting for.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have an ideal target and I give it a shot and I have to make some adjustments, it's going to be a lot closer to the ideal than if I'm just aiming at trying to get these things in.
Yeah.
If I get them, great. Right. There's it's the cliche of like failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So we might as well have a real shot at the plan. And so it is something where if does that make sense? Am I making sense? This is very much okay.
I also think it's incredible that you can make a fitness analogy out of legitimately anything.
It is. I think my superpower.
I think so.
It really I've started to put it on my Instagram stories. Like whenever I like put something up, and I'm just like, there's a fitness analogy here. And sometimes I'll do it, but sometimes
continue
I'm
to
like,
be
you can
impressed.
make it from yourself. But I'm like, man, I can make it out of everything. Like, it's my quest is to make a fitness analogy out of just about anything.
I continue to be impressed by it.
But this idea of like, if you're in a season right now, which I think a lot of people are, particularly parents, where like life is shifting, however big, right? You might not have had the 5 things, but like life is shifting and you have a shift. Take it as an opportunity. It is a blessing to be like, what have I been doing that is not serving me? That I've just been doing because it's a habit? What have I been doing that I want to make sure that I keep doing, but maybe isn't ideal? So I think I mentioned this on a podcast, one of the more recent ones, and it's not super public knowledge yet. And I'm still in a trial period, so I might get fired. Who knows? But I joined the mentorship that I'm part of as a success coach, and
Proud
so
of you.
this week was my first week like going to the meetings and stuff like that. I'm just there. I don't have any clients yet. I don't have any students that I'm helping. I'm just in these meetings, and it was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, this is a little overwhelming, right? Like, this is a whole thing. Like, I'm potentially going to double my amount of clients that I'm helping, like the clients that I'm helping, my fitness clients, and then I might have that equivalent roster of coaches, and so this could be a fairly tectonic shift in my life where I'm like, man, I just don't even know how this is going to work out. But the idea that right now the goal is I'm going to have this all figured out. No, like there's a reason it's a trial period. Like, it's a trial period for them. It's a trial period for me. It's like, all right, this is all shifting, and we have to kind of just meander our way through it a little bit blindly for a minute, and then we'll discover some stuff. But at least I have an idea of what I'm trying to build here. And they have an idea, but like, we don't know how it's going to go.
Right.
But as I did this schedule, I had in my head, we have a weekly meeting on Wednesdays as a team. And Wednesdays are currently my day with Levi, my one-on-one day with Levi. And I was like, I could probably do, it's at noon. I was like, he'll kind of does a quiet time around that time. I can just like kind of let him chill out, and I can be on the meeting and hop off if I need to. And then we had the meeting, and I was like, I don't know if I could be on this meeting with him and like actually do it.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't there this week because it was my first week. I was like, hey, I'm going to see if I can get some coverage for him. But like, long term, he's going to have to be. So I'm going to try it, and I'm going to see how it goes. And if it doesn't work well, then I pivot. We got to figure something out. And it might not be ideal, because ideally I would love Wednesdays to be my day with him. Middle of the week, like, that's would be ideal. But it might have to be Thursdays. And if it's Thursdays, then what does that mean? What are the consequences of that?
That's why you did your calendar on a program that you can alter.
Yeah. But I had an idea. Like, this is what I'm going to try. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if you're in this season of shifting, right, it's very easy to kind of get overwhelmed. Like, oh my gosh, it's all coming apart. It's like, no. It's coming down. Like, tear it down.
Yeah, that's okay. It's a part of the
There's
process.
a hole in the wall. Like, make it bigger. Like, you wanted to fix that wall anyway. Like, it wasn't where you wanted it to be. It wasn't the color you wanted it to be. It had rock behind it. Like, tear it down. Like, take advantage of the opportunity. Tear it down, build it back up the way. And while you're there, tear the floor up. And it might take you a little bit of time. But at some point, you're going to build it back to the thing that you want it to be, at least as close as you can get to it. Because there are boundaries to the house, right? Like, I can't build it exactly how I want it to be. It's like, oh, I can't go through that wall, right? So there's, it might not look exactly how I want it to be in my head, but it's going to look a lot closer if I just commit to doing it. And it helps, as you discovered on this call, we did a little exercise in it. It helps to have somebody giving you some ideas. Because we are my old students in our lives, I think. Which is, I don't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a natural feeling because almost every problem that we face is a new problem.
Yeah, we've never
If it's
faced
an old problem, it's not a problem.
Right.
If it's something we've done before, we're like, this isn't an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But our problems become new. And it's so funny when you think about like the problems that you had as like a teenager and you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the end of the world. And then you like scoff at them as an adult. And it's like, that's not a real problem.
I would
like,
kill for some of my high school problems right now.
100%. I was like, dude, if you sent me back to high school right now, I would dominate. I would dominate high school because like nothing matters. Like nothing matters at all.
Yeah.
And I could just be like, it doesn't matter. And I'd be fine, but it's the reason those are problems is because it's the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And we look at them as they're not problems because we've already solved them.
Right. They were just really uncomfortable situations that we didn't know how to handle that first time. Now we have the tools. We know how to handle them.
And you won't know how to handle any situation until you come across it. And so, but the thing that you have to do is you have to ask the question, how can I make this problem look like something I know how to solve? Mm-hmm. And the way that you do that is by throwing math at it. Doing things that you know you can do. Mm-hmm. I can work out at 8 a.m. Is it ideal? I don't know. Is it going to work? I don't know. But let me try it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm not pot committed to this, right? Let me try eating 3 times a day. Am I hungry every single morning at 10 a.m.? Maybe I should try a snack in the morning. Yeah. Let me try it. Oh, that didn't work out great. Mm-hmm. Okay, well let me try it. Maybe I don't really love breakfast. What if I tried intermittent fasting? Mm-hmm. You're not committed. Like, what happens if you do intermittent fasting for a week and you hate it? Just eat breakfast the next day. Just eat breakfast.
Grown up.
Like it does. Like you're not pot committed to anything here. Like just try the damn thing.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times in the past year or so I've had to have conversations with other grown-ups to say like, listen, you're an adult. You get to make this choice for yourself. And it's about, any number of things. But I'm like, you don't have to do that just because. Like, you can change your mind. You can shift how you think about things. And that's allowed because you're a grown-up.
You are a grown, like, especially if you're a parent, you are in charge of an entire other human or multiple humans.
Yeah.
Like, you are allowed to decide whether or not you eat breakfast today.
Yeah.
You are.
Yep.
Like, you have earned that right by being alive as long as you have been.
Yep.
Like, that's basically all that you had to do to earn the right.
Yeah.
So, have we talked about one-way doors or two-way doors? And then we'll finish up with this. Have we talked about that with decision-making?
No. I don't think so. Not on here, I don't think.
Okay. I might have talked about it with somebody else. But the idea of one-way doors and two-way doors is a Jeff Bezos thing. And I'm not a big Jeff Bezos guy, but this is how they make decisions at Amazon. Right? Is this a one-way door or is this a two-way door? Two-way doors, you can go either way.
Either way. Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't think about two-way door decisions. Just do it. And if you can undo it fairly easily, just do it.
Yep.
If it's a one-way door that it's really hard to unwind it, those are the ones that you're spending time making the decisions on, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the ones where they have multiple meetings and this is a lot of structure and they cost analysis because they don't want it to fail. And now you're going to make one-way door decisions that are going to be hard to unwind and that aren't going to be good. But if it's a two-way door decision, which most of your health and fitness is, like I joke about this a little bit. Like I'm going to a conference in a week. And, I let my clients know, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be gone, I'm like, let me know if there's anything urgent. But I know in my head, there's no urgency in health and fitness. No. Like there's no emergencies. There's nothing that is going to be so dramatic that like you can't walk it back in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not life or death.
I mean, long term it can be. It's a series of decisions. But in the minute, but like the only way it becomes life or death is if you don't make decisions. Mm-hmm. If you just stay doing nothing. But you gotta like try, see if it's gonna work, and you can very easily turn around. Now you got to give it the old college try, right? Don't be like, I didn't like that, right? You got to give it enough of a shot to see if it works. But there are opportunities here in these shifting seasons of life to build closer to the life that you are hoping to. And every iteration of tearing it down and building it back up again, you get closer and closer to it. Like this fall, I already know that this fall, while it's going to be challenging, is going to be better. Like we're going to do a better job balancing all this than we did last fall or the one before that. Because we learned something and we're like, okay, I know that's not going to work because I tried it before. But that is doing the math. That's doing math. Oh, like, all right, I knew that. So the next time this person gets a math problem, it's x squared plus 2x plus 9 equals 4. They're not going to try to subtract the 9 because they know that last time I did it from that side, it didn't do anything. So I might as well not try it now because it's a waste of my time. Let me do the thing that I know how to do and see if it works. But let me see if I can make this look like something I know how to solve. But it's a opportunity. It's not a hurdle. It's an opportunity. It's a challenge. Like, it doesn't mean that it's not, or I guess it is a hurdle. It is a hurdle, but it's not a wall. There we go. It's a hurdle. It's not a wall.
That's better.
You can get over it, but you gotta try. You gotta try. All right. I'll give this because I don't remember when this is coming out, but I'll just say this because I know that I am launching next week, which means that I have opened up a couple of coaching spots, and I don't know when I'm going to open up more coaching spots, to be totally frank with you, because I don't know what's coming down the pike with the mentorship and how that's going to shake out. So if you've been on the fence, just shoot me a message that says I'm in on Instagram. Shoot me an email, jeff@jeffdelzelfitness.com. that says I'm in, and I'll know what we're doing, and we'll talk about it. And I'll walk you through this. But I don't know when I'm going to open up for more clients again. So if you've been on the fence, this is a good time.
This is it, guys.
And yeah, crush it this fall. Take advantage of it. It's an opportunity.
Planning to.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you listening. Like, rate, subscribe, review, all the things. And we'll see you next time.